Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Graney. Here are today's top stories. President Trump unveils a new peace plan for the Middle East. The Israelis are backing the plan, but the Palestinians are not. The U.S. will start health screenings on people traveling from China as one of the latest efforts to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The Department of Justice is charging a Harvard University chair and two others with spying for the Chinese regime. The action comes as the DOJ highlights China's espionage and theft in the U.S. The UK allows Huawei a role in its 5G networks, this despite warnings from the US. The move could jeopardize intelligence sharing between the two nations. New York authorities crack down on suspected gun traffickers. They now face a total of 70 criminal charges. Officials are ramping up efforts to contain the spread of the coronavirus on US soil. They're focusing on airports for now.
The U.S. will expand screenings for travelers coming from China. The disease is spreading rapidly, now in 18 international locations.
CDC has reassessed its entry strategy and decided to expand to screening travelers from the 5 airports originally to 20 airports in the United States.
Health officials say while the risk to the general public is low, certain groups have greater risk of infection. For example, healthcare workers caring for infected patients.
They need to be vigilant, and the people around them need to be vigilant.
Right now, there is no proven cure for the coronavirus. The National Institutes of Health is working with other partners to develop a vaccine. For self-protection, officials advise washing your hands and covering your mouth when you cough.
And a charter jet is bringing American consulate employees home from China. They're traveling from Wuhan, where the virus first broke out. They'll land in California tomorrow morning.
As China's coronavirus outbreak continues to escalate, the State Department ordered U.S. consulate employees in China to head to the U.S. Officials say the diplomats will go through 3 health checks to determine if any of them are infected with the virus. The receiving airport says it will isolate those passengers on the charter flight to ensure the safety of other travelers in the airport.
We have a secure facility, and if the passengers do arrive at this airport, they will be placed in a secure facility away from all terminals and all other traveling public.
5 people in the U.S. have been diagnosed with the coronavirus.
2 patients with the coronavirus have been confirmed in Southern California, one in Orange County and the other in LA. St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange County says it's now prepared to receive patients.
Experts recommend that people who have been to Wuhan, China recently get checked, even if they don't think they're infected with coronavirus. They say there's no need to panic.
There's a 2-week incubation period, so patients will not have symptoms for 2 weeks even though they've traveled to that city. I would say if you have had travel to Wuhan City and you're currently in the United States, I would contact your public health agency, even if you don't have symptoms.
Dr. Lee says if you think you could have been infected, you should cover your nose and eyes to avoid spreading the virus.
If you do have symptoms and you've traveled to Wuhan City over the past 2 weeks, if you come to the hospital, we ask you to wear a mask, make sure you've washed your hands, and immediately tell healthcare personnel that you did have travel there. We are screening 100% of our patients for travel, but if we know immediately, then we can take all of our prepared isolation steps to keep them out of danger from contaminating other people.
Dr. Lee says people don't need to worry too much about the virus. If you're coming to St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange County, he says, it has many empty rooms and is prepared for immediate and emergency quarantine.
And this just in, U.S. Department of Health officials say they're working hard to diagnose the virus. They said with cautious optimism that a phase 1 vaccine trial could be introduced within 3 months. And in other news, U.S. officials are charging 3 people with spying for China. One is an Ivy League professor and the other 2 are Chinese nationals.
According to the Department of Justice, the chair of Harvard University's Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department has been accused of aiding the Chinese regime. 2 Chinese nationals have also been indicted.
We're here today to announce 3 separate cases highlighting the ongoing threat posed by Chinese economic espionage and research theft in the United States.
Dr. Charles Lieber was charged with lying about his participation in a Chinese foreign recruitment program. while the two Chinese nationals faced different charges. One, who was working as a scientific researcher at Boston University,
who failed to mention on her visa application that she is also a lieutenant with the People's Liberation Army.
And the other,
for trying to smuggle vials of biological material out of the United States to China and lying about it to federal investigators.
The Justice Department has expressed increasing concern about Chinese espionage efforts.
China's communist government's goal, simply put, is to replace the United States as the world's leading superpower, and they're breaking the law to get there.
The three indictments are the latest in a series of academics the U.S. has criminally charged for their dealings with China.
And the UK has decided to allow Huawei a restricted role in its 5G networks. This despite warnings from US officials. Our UK correspondent Jane Worrell reports from London.
The UK has formally classified Huawei as a high-risk vendor, but it's also allowing the Chinese firm to build part of its 5G network. It's a controversial decision, particularly as it contradicts advice from US officials and is against the wishes of some members of Boris Johnson's government.
The UK is siding with a totalitarian regime because one of their main companies, British Telecom, is saying, well, we need the subsidy from China so that we can have cheap equipment.
The US has said that such a decision would jeopardise their intelligence sharing relationship with the UK, but earlier Britain's Foreign Secretary said otherwise. He said UK vendors like Huawei will be restricted to the non-sensitive parts of the networks and capped at 35%. The decision has been long-running. It split Theresa May's government, with the UK Defence Minister sacked last year after allegedly leaking details about Huawei's potential role in the UK from a national security meeting. Companies like Huawei pose new challenges to national security.
Our new national security strategy is to address, in the 21st century, what are new national security challenges to democracy that aren't, the classic ones where you have tanks or airplanes and troops coming in.
A YouGov poll from earlier this month shows that only 1 in 10 Brits trust Huawei. This is a technology company that's been linked to human rights violations in China, abetting the Chinese Communist Party with the incarceration of Uyghur Muslims. Some senators have reacted to the UK's decision. Tom Cotton likened the UK's decision to allowing the KGB to build its telephone network during the Cold War. Ted Cruz said it will endanger the national security of Britain, as well as US and allies, for generations to come.
Number 10 said that Boris Johnson has updated President Trump. More US reactions are expected tomorrow when Mike Pompeo is due to visit London. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
And President Trump unveiling his long-awaited plan for peace in the Middle East today. Israeli leaders are backing the plan, but Palestinian leaders rejected it even before its release.
President Trump on Tuesday unveiled what he calls the most detailed plan ever for peace in the Middle East. It recognizes Israel's right to disputed lands such as the Jordan Valley. It also includes a roadmap to a Palestinian state.
My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides, a realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security.
Under the plan, Jerusalem will be the undivided capital of Israel. Palestine's capital will be in East Jerusalem. Both groups lay claim to the holy city. Palestinians will be given more land. Their new state will be twice the area they currently control. The plan will also deliver a $50 billion development investment.
Their GDP will double and triple, and much-needed hope, joy, opportunity, and prosperity will finally arrive for the Palestinian people.
There are preconditions for the Palestinians, though. They must disassociate from terrorist groups like Hamas. Hamas currently governs part of the Palestinian-controlled territory in Gaza. The new state will also need to guarantee things like freedom of religion and freedom of the press.
We are asking the Palestinians to meet the challenges of peaceful coexistence.
Benjamin Netanyahu praised the deal as a great path to peace. It requires Israel put a 4-year freeze on claiming territories that will belong to the Palestinians under the new agreement. In return, they will be allowed to immediately apply Jewish law in the areas that will be part of Israel.
This decision will protect Israel's security ensure Israel's national interests, and leave open the possibility of a political settlement with the Palestinians in the coming years.
Palestinian leaders rejected the plan on Monday before even seeing it. They have called on Arab leaders to also reject the plan. They were not invited to the White House for Tuesday's event.
Thousands flocked to New Jersey today for a President Trump campaign rally. This despite the area's reputation as a strongly blue state. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more from the convention center.
Trump supporters formed enormous crowds outside the Wildwoods Convention Center in New Jersey Tuesday night in anticipation of the president's campaign rally.
There are about 20,000 people here in support of President Trump at the rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. And that number is expected to grow to 100,000 by this afternoon when the rally starts. And behind me, there are a few people from New Jersey who have not slept for 3 days so that they can be in the front lines to show their support for President Trump. Trump 2020!
Some expressed their appreciation for what the president has done for them.
Being in the construction business, it's very, very, very competitive. And when the economy's not doing too well, a lot of people want to hold on to their money. They're afraid to spend it because they don't know what's going on in the future. And in the last 3 years, I'm proud to say, I've done better now than I have any time in my life. And I'm contributing that to Donald Trump. He got rid of a lot of Barack Obama's regulations, which made it easier for people to hire more people, put more money into their businesses. And, we have 7 million more people working since he's done this, which is an amazing feat.
One young farmer from a town in southern Pennsylvania commented on other candidates' claims about U.S. farmers.
So we know a lot of people that aren't into farming, and they are not failing, and they say it. And even there's some people in our town that don't like Trump, and they admit that they're not doing how they say they're doing.
Some commended Trump's hard stance against socialism.
But don't expect handouts. We don't need socialism. Young people don't realize where socialism started. And has it gotten Venezuela anywhere? Has it gotten Cuba any place? Any other country that has started with socialism are all here now.
While others applauded his efforts on the abortion issue.
He turned the power over to the states for them to make the decisions in regards to the unborn and what was lawful and constitutional. And so in that process, he saved thousands and thousands of babies. The president has restored religious freedom.
The convention center is set up to hold 7,500 people, but the campaign also set up large TVs outside in anticipation of a large overflow crowd. Counter demonstrators were also there. The president is scheduled to speak at 7 p.m. local time. Reporting by Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
A powerful magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck in the South Sea of Cuba today, with employees evacuating buildings in the New Kingston area of Jamaica. The epicenter of the quake was between Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and Cuba at a shallow depth of 6.2 miles. The International Tsunami Information Center said tsunami waves of up to 3 feet were possible on some coasts. And coming up next, New York authorities crack down on suspected gun traffickers. They face a total of 70 criminal charges. That and more after the break.
This season, take an incredible journey through 5,000 years of culture with Shen Yun. Discover why people are calling Shen Yun a visual feast, a pleasure to the ear, an epic tale, a must-see. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and bite-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
In New York City, authorities stopped over 40 firearms from potentially making it onto the streets. 5 suspects were charged today with over 70 criminal counts.
On the table were 35 guns that could have ended up on the streets of New York City. Justin Holmes Austin and Thomas Solomon, with the assistance of 3 other suspects, allegedly sold a total of 40 firearms to an undercover NYPD officer.
We're here to discuss what is really the most recent work to dismantle gun trafficking crews who have, over years, flooded our streets in Manhattan with illegal guns.
The DA said the suspects were charged with a total of 70 criminal counts. He said all 5 have been arraigned and held on bail. But not all of them are from New York. 2 of the suspects are Georgia residents and supplied Holmes Austin and Solomon with the firearms.
The vast majority of these guns came up what is referred to as the iron pipeline. That is from those states who have little or no laws with regard to selling guns.
Although most of the guns are from Georgia, a more gun-friendly state than New York, the NYPD said some of the guns sold were stolen. Some were also defaced, while others were new with no trace data available. The DA also proposed giving a harsher penalty to people who illegally sell over 20 guns. He said that right now, defendants who sell 40 guns face the same maximum 5-year sentence as someone who sells 10.
And in other news, investigators are looking into weather conditions on the day Kobe Bryant and 8 others were killed in a helicopter crash.
Investigators are looking into bad weather as one factor as they try to work out why a helicopter crashed on Sunday, killing basketball legend Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others. Fog was so bad that morning that both the LA Police and County Sheriff Departments grounded their helicopters, according to the LA Times. Jennifer Hamendi from the US National Transportation Board described radio calls with air traffic control before Bryant's helicopter crashed.
The pilot requested flight following to continue to Camarillo, but Southern California TRACON advised the pilot that they were too low for flight following. Approximately 4 minutes later, the pilot advised they were climbing to avoid a cloud layer. When ATC asked what the pilot planned to do, there was no reply. Radar data indicates the helicopter climbed to 2,300 feet and then began a left descending turn. Last radar contact was around 9:45 a.m. and is consistent with the accident location.
Mourners are gathering across the world to remember the NBA champion. He often traveled by helicopter to avoid LA traffic. This time with his 13-year-old daughter, a basketball player, as well as a couple and daughter, a mother and daughter, a basketball coach, and the pilot. Back at the scene, officials say debris is spread out over 500 to 600 feet across the hillside outside of Calabasas in California. Some bodies have been found, but investigators are likely to be on the scene for 5 days.
And coming up, the Department of Justice is calling on Congress to extend the ban on the drug fentanyl. Find out what happens if they don't act after the break.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
The Justice Department is calling on the House to extend the illegal status of fentanyl and related substances. Without a vote to extend the ban, the substances will become legal next week.
Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen said in a statement that if the House fails to act by midnight on February 6th, traffickers of deadly opioids will again have the upper hand. This cannot be allowed to happen. Rosen urged the House of Representatives to act and help save Americans from more overdoses and deaths. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid 50 times more potent than heroin, where 2 milligrams of the drug can be lethal for a non-opioid user. The drug was subject to a temporary emergency order that lasts 2 years, which made it and other related substances illegal. The substance, which is primarily manufactured in China, was responsible for 40% of around 70,500 drug overdose deaths in 2017. The Senate passed a bipartisan bill on January 16th, extending the DEA's temporary scheduling of fentanyl-related substances for another 15 months. The House is scheduled to hold a hearing on fentanyl analogs on Tuesday.
The backbone of the Artemis rocket, called a flight core stage, took a journey by boat to Mississippi. It'll support the weight of the spacecraft during its mission to the moon. NASA's Pegasus barge transported the first flight core stage for NASA's Space Launch System rocket. It traveled from the agency's assembly facility in New Orleans to Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. The stage rolled out from the Pegasus barge at the B-2 test stand. Once lifted and installed on the stand, the stage will undergo a series of integrated tests prior to its Artemis 1 flight. NASA is building SLS as the world's most powerful rocket to return humans to deep space. They'll head to destinations such as the Moon and Mars. And tax forms can seem daunting and confusing, but in an effort to simplify the process, the IRS has overhauled the federal income withholding form.
For the first time in years, the IRS updated the Federal Income Withholding Form, or W-4. The change reflects the new tax code Congress approved in 2017. The new form has been divided into 5 steps, and you could skip questions that don't apply to your situation. One major change is that it took away allowances, because the new tax law eliminated personal exemptions. Instead, the form directly asks you how many children and dependents you have, and you have to multiply that number by the amount of the federal tax credit. It also simplified the section about other income. Now you just have to check a box if you work 2 jobs, or if you have a spouse who works. You only need to fill out a W-4 if you started a new job in 2020. But tax specialists encourage workers to review their withholdings each year. If too little is deducted, you may get a smaller refund or possibly owe money at tax time. If too much is deducted, you might get a fat check at tax time. But you're basically giving the government a no-interest loan throughout the year.
And up next, a French tea house celebrates Lunar New Year with unique teas. Even the water gets special treatment. More on that after the break.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
There's a French tea house that celebrates Chinese New Year with its unique blue tea, an invitation to combine new aromas with old tradition and travel without leaving home. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story.
There are some unusual ways to celebrate Lunar New Year in Paris.
Bienvenue chez Mariage Frère.
One of them is going to Mariage Frère tea producers and tasting a brand new tea, the Lunar Year of the Affectionate Rat. Charlie Charillon is our ambassador. He welcomed us with a blue drink, oolong tea with a perfumed liquor of fresh citrus, goji berries from the Himalayas, and blue flowers. We use a very hot filtered water, according to special standards. It's important to never boil the water. Each water is unique. We pay attention to each step. And here the iced tea version, with lemon, milk, and poetry. This is like a dance, a ballet. Tea allows a cook to combine ingredients to create a unique taste. We also practice gastronomy and prepare pastries. Here, a supreme roasted chicken, superbly browned with a grenadine glaze, and Persian rice. The story of the Mariage family started before the 17th century, when France's King Louis XIV charged Nicolas Mariage with bringing India and Persia's best teas back to France. This is how tea began its spread in the West, with some adventurers and Asia enthusiasts looking to bring the precious beverage back home. According to Charillon, taking time to taste the tea brings up old memories and is an invitation to travel in faraway places. We hope that each customer becomes a traveler here. We want them to travel with us in Burma, on the top of the Himalayas, in Jeju Island. We invite each customer to take a trip. We help them discover the aromas, home products, and ways to taste our tea. The tea house also infuses its own products and standards into the world of tea, such as the use of cotton bags for single doses, or the use of Japanese teapots. In the early 80s, we really had to negotiate with Japanese craftsmen, make them understand we did want to pay respect to their millennia-old tradition, and they allowed us to create this. Since its existence, Mariage Frère has a collection of 1,000 teas, and 150 more are currently expected to be available soon.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.